Um, so how did you come to meet Einat, and how did you two decide that this book is necessary to be written and published?
Well, I think that for many years, both Einat and myself, in separate ways, we didn't know each other until a decade ago when we started working on the book. Our relationship, Israel's relationship with our neighbors, is of course a major factor of our lives. In our lives, the fact that most of our neighbors, in some way or another, find it very difficult to recognize the Jewish state, the nation state of the Jewish people, has major implications on our lives. You must understand that, for example, Israel needs to have a very strong army in order to defend our borders and our lives, which means that each and every one of us, males and females, must go to the army for 3 years or 2 years. We spend as a state an enormous sum of money on buying airplanes and missiles and whatever you want, tanks. There's a lot of energy going into this whole conflict with our neighbors. We pay a very heavy price. People are being killed and wounded by the day. Just yesterday, there was a terror attack in Jerusalem. I'm not even sure that most of the international media covers it each day because there's so many incidents, stabbings, and so what I'm trying to say is that living in Israel next to neighbors which are much bigger than us. If you look at the state of Israel, it's about, let's say, more or less 10 million people. We're surrounded by something like 300 million Arabs in the near vicinity and more than 1 billion Muslims around the Middle East and Asia, of course. So we're a small nation fighting for our lives in a very tough neighborhood. You know that Syria, what's going on, Lebanon, Iraq, Iran, of course, is a major factor of instability.
Yes.
So for us, peace, living in peace with our neighbors could make our lives much easier. You understand?
Yes.
If we didn't need to spend 20, 30, 40% of our budget on ammunition and having a strong army, and instead we could invest that money in improving our quality of life, each and every citizen of Israel would have been very happy. So the quest for peace, I think, in this country is a very strong desire. You understand? Simply because it's a matter of having a better quality of life. And then the question is, why don't we have peace? What's the root problem? What's the cause of this conflict? Why are we in conflict with the Palestinians and with Lebanon, Hezbollah, Syria, Iran? Each one of these actors is a little bit different, right? But this is a question that hangs over our heads constantly. So this is the first question. And I think both Einat and myself, growing up in Israel in the 80s and the 90s, I mean, politically, there seemed to be an image or a understanding or position that the problem is that the Palestinians want to have their independence. So a few million Palestinians live in what's been called in the international media as the West Bank, and the Gaza Strip. And these people are under Israeli control since the 1967 Six-Day War. And all they want to do is to have their own state, and this makes sense, right? You asked me, what does it mean for you to be a Zionist? I told you, to be a Zionist means to be free and independent. So of course, that when the Palestinians tell me that they only want to have their own freedom and independence. I can't be, I can't ignore it. And this is the reason why I said, okay, you know what? That seems reasonable. We have a piece of land. The Jews have their own state in Tel Aviv, Haifa, whatever areas we have. The Palestinians want to have their own state in the West Bank. Okay, let's take the land, split the land. It's a very tiny land. It's, it's one of the smallest countries on earth. But if this is what we need to have peace and to end this conflict, and to be able to raise our children in a much peaceful atmosphere, of course, I think that this is something that's worth doing. So this was the reason, and this was the understanding of the entire what's been called in Israel the peace camp, okay? That we can reach some kind of a territorial partition of the land, territorial agreement, and there would be one Jewish state next to one Palestinian state, one nation state for the Jews, one nation state for the Palestinians. Mm-hmm. This was the rationale of a few peace proposals in the last 30 years by such people as Prime Minister Ehud Barak, and later on President Bill Clinton and Ehud Olmert and other people who proposed, okay, guys, you say that you want to have your own state, let's do it. You will have your own state in the West Bank. You will have your own capital in East Jerusalem. We will divide Jerusalem, which was the, ancient capital of the Jewish people since the days of King Solomon. But we understand that today there's a lot of Muslim interest in the city, so we will divide the control over Jerusalem. There will be half Israeli control or Jewish control, and there would be half Arab control. Okay, let's finish the business. And then the Palestinians didn't say yes. The Palestinians didn't take this offer. And we were very surprised. This is the moment where both it's not a moment, it's a process, right? But this was the moment when we told ourselves what's going on. We were told for so many years and decades that the Palestinians only want to have their freedom. And this is, again, no problem for me. If you want to be free, by all means, I can't tell you that you're not entitled to be free. But then they said no. Everything they said for so many years that they are interested in, which is being independent, which is having their own state, which is not having to, live under Israeli control or the Israeli army, they were offered, they were suggested, and they didn't take it. So what's the logical outcome? What's what should a reasonable man conclude? That they probably want something else. That despite saying for so many years that this is exactly what they want, only want to have their own state, actually they want something else. And this is the moment when we started researching more and reading more and going deeper, reading what they tell their own people in Arabic, etc., etc. This is the process of research of many years. We understood that, unfortunately for us, I think this is a sad fact. This is not something which I was happy to discover. Unfortunately, the Palestinians are not interested in living side by side next to Israel, but still to control the entire land. Now, I don't know how familiar your listeners and viewers are with the map, but if you call it the Holy Land or the entire land of Israel, you can say more or less generally is divided by an area which is something like 80% Jews, and there's the area which is the West Bank, which is perhaps 80% Palestinians, let's say. Mm-hmm. Now, it would be reasonable to partition the land, right, into two homogeneous states. But as I said, what the Palestinians are interested in is still to control the entire land. They view the entire land as their own. They view the creation of the state of Israel in 1948 as a grave injustice. Mm-hmm. So it's like all or nothing. way of thinking. So they say, no, we will not take part of the land. We are interested in all of the land. We are only interested in in everything, and therefore we're not going to compromise and to get only half or only part of what we see as our own. So this is the reason why we started writing about it, because we understood that even we were wrong. We interpreted wrongly what the Palestinians wanted, and we wanted to share with everybody else our understandings. And you know, if the Palestinians are interested in different things, you must adjust your policy, your reactions towards them, and be prepared to change course. If you're just going to repeat again and again and again, you know, they talk about the peace process. But if you're going to repeat again and again peace proposals while the Palestinians are not even interested in that, you're going to have a failure. You know, it's like Albert Einstein is known to say that the definition of lunacy is to do again and again the same thing and fail. So you must do something else. And if you understand that the Palestinians are interested in something else, then you have to change your policies.